Welcome to WarHQ. My name is Luke. Today we're going through just a very basic battle report for Blade Wrath, Fury of Vikings. Now this one is intended for the Kickstarter, so you're probably watching that there. And basically we're just going to go through two small forces, and we're going to try and just go through the rules so you can get just a bit of a brief on the playthrough. We're not going to get super technical on how every aspect works. I'll make further videos on that. But this will just give you a little bit of a rundown on just the general flow of the game and see if you like it. Okay, what we have in today's example video is we have our home defense force, and I'll just quickly go through that. So what we have over here is 3 units. At the back we can see that we have our Bondi Archer units, no upgrades there. We have some Bondi Spearmen. No upgrades there either. And down here we have our Herdman Swordsman unit. And what we can see here with these guys is they have been upgraded to have a unit champion over there with the arrow through his shield, and a Mercus Martyr, or a unit standard bearer. So this will give them a few little bonuses in rallying routed troops, and also in fighting duels as well, and in charging with that local hero. So let's see how they go. Now, our little invading force here, which is going to try and take out that little farmlet, is we have, down here, we have some berserkers. We have a unit of 8 berserkers, and it is led by a berserker, or a famous berserk hero. He's standing over a corpse of one of his fallen enemies there, you can see. And at the back here, we have 2 units of Bondi, one being of raiders. So these are our rapid, fast guys, armed with basically hand weapons. And over here we have a unit of Javelineers. So this force is very much intended to be fast-paced and hard-hitting. Deployment is set, and what we have is those original defenders of the farmlet are all over here. Now, we have the Bondi Spearmen and the Herdman on the flanks, and they are both deployed in closed order. And we have an open order archer unit there, obviously trying to get a little bit of speed maybe to get up into that farmlet and get a bit of protection. And on the other side of the board, we have very simply everyone deployed in open order. And the berserkers and raiders are on one flank. And on the other side of this little rock, we have our Javelineers over there ready to wreak some havoc on that side of the board. Okay, so beginning of turn 1, we roll the target number for this turn, and it's going to be a 6. So everything we do this turn is going to be based on number 6. And then we roll the individual initiatives for each of the forces. The invaders over here grab a 4. And the defenders over here get a 3. So the defenders, having scored the lowest number, they also get the hold the line pledge number this turn. So that means that they're going to get 2 free brace tokens that they can use defensively only, placed onto any of their units. Meanwhile, the invaders over here have rolled a 4 and got fire assist as their pledge. So it's a shooting encounter sort of one. So they can either choose once per fighting phase another unit can activate this turn, or they get 2 free assist tokens placed on any missile armed troops. So what we're going to do very simply is they're going to add those 2 tokens to that missile unit, and then the defensive stuff that these guys got over here with hold the line, they are going to put that defensively over here. And that will start us. Now it's up to the defenders with the lower number to choose their initiative, and they are going to choose to fight, which means that the offenders are going to be moving first. Okay. First part of the movement phase, we have the offensive guys get to go first, so we can choose any of these 3 units. What we're going to do to try and avoid getting shot with arrows is we're going to start with our berserkers. And now, because they're in open order, they can move from anywhere. I can move them any direction I want. So I can just pick a point, and they can move up to 6 in this open formation, and they're unarmored. So they just move to there. They're full 6 inches. I'll move these guys up with them, keeping that open order. All right, over here on the defensive side, what we might do I really want to get these arches up. Now they're currently in open order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move them. Now this is classed as rough terrain, so you have to be in open order to be able to move through it. So just to keep that in mind. And they were already started the game in open order, which makes it a bit easier. And we can just roughly keep them as they're meant to be. We know they're in open order. Going through the buildings. Okay, we go back over here. Raiders are in the same position. They want to get up as quick as they can here. They're moving at the 6 as well. One thing about the Raiders is it doesn't matter what formation they're in, they always move at open movement speeds, which is pretty interesting. It's one of their main advantages, plus charging. Okay, they go to there. These spearmen, now they are unarmored and in a closed formation, so they can move 5. So we're going to skid around the edge of this rough terrain here. So just move them down a little bit. All right, they go to there. Now Javelineers, these guys are fast. They can move from everywhere with this open order, so they're going 6. So we just put like a marker model there, and we move these guys up. Now they have their +2 offensive dice as well from this turn's pledge number. Okay, and last unit to move will be these guys. Now this is the slowest movement because they can only move 4 in this particular formation. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to incline a little. So I'm just going to incline this way. I can go up to 45 degrees. So I'll just get this first guy here just to clear this terrain here. So they're moving basically forward in an inclined manner. Okay. And that there is the first part of the movement phase done. We go to the second part straight away. And these guys are going to choose a unit to move again. Now I've got to be very careful what I decide to do here, because say if I was to move these guys up there full so they could shoot, then they wouldn't be able to react to anything that these guys do. So what we're going to do, I think, in this particular turn is I'm going to try and run these guys. So we've already advanced with everyone. So running is a thing. I'm going to try and run, but I'm going to try and change my formation. So what I mean by that is they're going to try and close to a closed formation on the move. Now you can attempt to do this once per turn with a unit. Now it's based on their discipline level. Now these guys have an average discipline, so I'm going to need a minor success to be able to do so. In this case, for this turn, it's going to be a 1 or a 5. I've got 2 dice to do that currently, since I've got a full unit. I get a 1, which means that I can move and then close my formation on the move, basically. So that was pretty cool. So what we're doing here, so they're still going to move 5 because they move the same regardless. These guys, they drop down. Okay, here we go. So these guys are going to a unit that is closed, and there it is. So that was a cool move. They managed to use their discipline, which is not a bad thing. Now these guys, there's a couple of things I can do here, but I think I'm going to try and get these spearmen around as fast as I can. So they're going to wheel slightly. So they're just going to wheel. They can move up to 5 because they're unarmored. Okay, and they move to here. All right, now over here, I'm trying to bleed these guys out a bit. These guys, they don't really want to get shot, which is going to suck a little bit. So I think I'm going to spring a little bit of a trap here. So these guys can move from any unit, so they go to there. What I'm thinking here is if I don't move across like this, I could get shot by the archers in the firing phase. Not really what I'm aiming to get at. So I'm going to sort of put them behind this closed unit, which won't be able to be seen through, by the archers, to sort of screen my best troops, so to say, and set myself up to maybe take on their best unit. Now the archers in this instance, they don't currently have a very good line of sight on anything here because there's only really 1 or 2 guys that can see anyone, so they're going to have to move out. And they're just going to move out to the edge here because these guys are threatening, but they've already moved this turn, so I'm not too concerned about them. Now archers do work better in closed formations, but we are sitting inside a rough terrain piece, which makes it a little bit harder for them. So they're just going to stay in open formation like that with a run. And then we go back to here, and this is what I was kind of not sure about. So what I've got to keep in mind here is these guys can charge, well, they can move 4, but they could potentially charge 6. So what I'm going to be wanting to do is sort of keep them out of that range. So I'm going to just put my finger there and mark where I want to be. These guys will easily have the movement. They move up here. I want to get off a couple of volley or so on these herdmen before they close and cause all sorts of carnage on me. Okay, and I've still got that bonus there as well. So last move of a unit within this turn is going to be the herdmen themselves. They're out of charge range now. They're 7 inches there, so they're just going to do a normal move and come forward, not the full 4, but just to here. Now, one thing I might want to keep in mind normally is that with these javelineers, their prime spot is 4. So what I've done is I've actually made them come to within my short range, which is very good for me. I'll get more dice in attack. But there wasn't really much of a choice if I wanted to get these guys up defensively. So I'm just going to have to take that for this turn and hope that I don't get completely smashed. Okay, so for the fighting phase, there isn't a lot this first turn. Now the archers, which are down here, they advanced and they ran, which means they can't shoot because they're not a skirmishing unit. These ones aren't actually classed as skirmishers, whereas these javelineers are classed as skirmishers, and everything else doesn't have missile weapons. So the only unit that's going to fight in turn 1 is going to be these javelineers over here. Now you'll remember before I told you that how javelins work is the closer they are, the better. So like within 4 inches, which is that, and it can just be like the unit is in 4 inches. It doesn't have to be the whole unit, just in 4 inches. Okay, so what they're going to do is they're going to get a +4. So there's 8 models, so they get 1 dice each, then +1 per 2 guys. So that makes 12. But then they also get this bonus here of this 2. So they'll have 14 dice this turn against how we work this one out over here. These guys are all shielded. So they get 2 dice per front model, chunk. So there's 8 dice there. And then what we get is, in this particular situation, we get +1 per rear rank against shooting like this. So what we get is 12. So it's going to be 14 dice versus 12 dice. Now we're looking for major and minor successes over here. Okay, so what we have, the javelineers start their little foray over here, and I'll roll it. So what we get is their 6s are majors. So we've got 2 major successes, 5s and 1s that we're looking for now. And so far we've got 4 wounds. So it looks like that's the full roll there. And then in defense, we're going to have 12 dice, like I suggested before. And we're going to roll that in defense for our swordsmen. And it looks like they've rolled very well. So I think they're probably going to be fine here, I would say. So what we end up with, yeah, we just, defensively, they just felt fully held. So we get 4 deaths. So what that does is it cancels, well, 2 of those cancel those, and then these are worth 2 each, so we've already cancelled that. And then they also rolled 4 wounds as well, so that didn't even matter. So what happens there is they were ready for the fire, they just completely took it, everyone was cool, and no harm done. So having nothing going on in the end phase, we go straight to turn 2. So we roll the new target number, which is now a 1 for this turn, and the defenders over here roll a 6 for theirs, for their pledge number, and we get a 6 over here. So we both got the same pledge number. Interesting. So what happens here is with the 6, we get the inspiring willpower. So you can either choose, an army can either choose to re-roll all failed morale tests this turn, which is pretty handy, or give 2 units the fearless keyword. Now that's big. I think both of them are going to choose that, because what that does is it gives you a death save, basically. So the 2 units I'm going to choose, obviously, are these 2 down here. They will now have Fearless, and so will this one and this one. He already has Fearless. So all of the Bondi units on the board at the moment currently have Fearless, and they will be able to get that ward save. But one thing that happens now is that we still need to determine who won the initiative. So whoever gets the lowest here, and it's going to be these guys. Okay, so what happens now is that these guys are going to opt to fight first. So that'll make these guys have to move first, and we're going to take it from there. Okay, so beginning of turn 2 movement. We're in the first part. the defenders are having to move first. They've got the movement initiative. So what we are going to do, this is going to get very technical now, and you're going to see the movement reaction sort of phases. So I think we might start with this guy because he's the furthest away. And we're going to keep wheeling around here. And we're going to go up to our 5. We're going to be a little bit careful. These guys can charge up to 6, so that just puts us just out of their charge range, which is where I want to be. Okay, because I'm not so worried about the spearmen having to react to charges because they're better off not countercharging. They're better off just taking the charge. They get a bonus when they actually get charged. All right, so that's the first move over here. Now these guys have to choose someone to move. All right, let's have a think about this. We want to clear a bit of a way here before we get shot, I guess. So I'm going to incline with these guys, just ever so slightly. We're going to go up to 4. It's going to be on, I'd say, next turn. Okay, so they charge down there. And here we go, baby. So these go to the right. All right, so that's those guys. Now, next turn, we can do a number of things here. Like I could ready the archers if I want, and then if these, I've now cleared a line to the berserkers, see? So if these berserkers then move, then these could get a shot on them. And I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to ready these. So they're just holding basically and getting ready to shoot. So if anything moves within their zone now, they're able to shoot them. Okay, so we go back over to these guys. And what I think I might do is just hop a little bit out of that range. We're at a good range at the moment. Like I could stay there, but I don't want to get run over as well. Because they can move from anywhere in this open formation, we just bring them back a little bit. I want to try and stay within that 4-inch sort of range, I guess. And I don't want to be charged. And I think I've moved myself far enough away that I can't be directly charged by those herdmen again. And this is how skirmishes operated, obviously throughout ancient and medieval periods and beyond. It's just staying out of range and peppering people. Yeah, so they can't really charge there. So we go back over to these guys, and what we're going to do is we're going to do an incline here. So these guys are going to move 4 inches, but they're going to incline to the left, like this. Okay, so that's them. Now what do we have left? We have the berserkers. And remember now, if the berserkers choose to move, and they could actually charge, they can charge from this position, they are going to get shot first. So we're going to do something a little bit interesting, and that is that I am going to declare a charge with these berserkers on these herdmen. And what I'm going to do also, it's going to spring 2 things, and this is where the game gets interesting. Now, the first thing it's going to spring is I'm going to get shot immediately by these archers, which isn't fun. So I'm going to have to survive that. And I'm also going to issue a single combat challenge to this unit because I've got a famous berserk here as a hero, and I also have a local champion, which is a hero, and both of them can issue and receive challenges. So the thing here is, if these guys decide, if these guys here decide that they don't want to accept this challenge, then they will lose any special abilities from having this leader this turn. But they're not soft, so they're going to accept it. So what happens first? I initiate the movement, which automatically springs this, because this player would decide, yep, I'm going to shoot. Okay, so in this position, it's not ideal for archers. They're better off working in closed formation. They get bonuses for rear ranks because they're all sort of fighting together. So it's going to be 8 dice. Now, the reason I want to shoot this squishy target is that they don't have many defensive dice here. They've only got 1 per model in this position, so they only have 8 dice. So it's going to be 8 dice versus 8 dice. So let's roll that and see how we go. Okay, so we're looking at 1s are kills, and then 6s and 2s. So we have a few wounds and 1 kill. Okay, so we've got 1 kill and 3 wounds, and now the berserkers having to sort of match that. So let's roll them. Berserkers roll 3 wounds, 1 kill. Okay, looks like they negated that. So in their defense, the shooting isn't going so well this turn, which is unusual. So they take the shooting, and now what they do is they move. Now this unit, this is the interesting thing here too. Normally this unit could countercharge if it hadn't already moved, but it's already moved this turn, which means that they cannot any longer counter charge, which puts the berserkers at a massive advantage. So normally these guys are going to move 6 like this, and that is going to, because they are in open formation, they're going to meet the enemy, so it's all good. They don't even have to roll, but we want to roll because there may be collision bonuses. So let's just roll, see what they get. So with a 2 on their movement, they get +1 movement, and they also get +1 impact dice. So I'll just put that there now. They're going to get a bonus. So this guy is going to hit here, and they're just going to sort of swing in. It's going to be something like that. Actually, with the extra move, they would have just completely met them on with that wheel. Okay, so these guys line up over here. Actually, before that, let's just move them back a little. I did issue a single combat challenge, which means we stop just before we engage, like this. That's it. And what happens is our Berserker hero steps out, and this guy steps out, our local hero steps out. So there's going to be a single combat challenge. It's been issued and received there. So that would end the movement phase. But when these actually fight, it's not like these guys are just fighting to the death. They just get one swing at each other until their units charge and impact, okay? So important to keep in mind there, that sort of dynamic, just for later, because we still have another movement phase. But these two now are considered locked in combat and can no longer move during the movement turn. Okay, we move on to the second part of the movement phase. Now we have 2 units here that haven't done anything. One thing I'll say now is because these guys have shot, it's a pre-fighting phase attack. They can no longer do anything else this movement phase, which pretty much renders them useless. So the only unit we really have to move on this side is these guys. Now, defensive spearmen like this don't want to actually charge the enemy because they will lose all of their bonuses in doing so. So what these guys are going to do is they're just going to hold, which just means just to stop and react to what the enemy do. That makes it pretty easy for my next move, where I'm going to declare a charge with these guys, and they are going to, they're well within range, so it's not a problem, and they're going to roll their collision as well, and they get no bonus. Okay, so what happens there is they just line up at the front of this, and they charge, because it's a direct charge to the front. Okay, and they're overlapped to the right there. Okay, so these guys are going to be in combat, and that takes them out from this. So there's only other one unit that can actually do anything in this second part of the movement phase, and that's the Javelineers. And this is where they shine, honestly, is like getting onto the flanks and throwing javelins at people when they're already engaged in combat. It's a bit risky, but it's worth the reward, you know, the risk, I guess you'd say. So I'm just going to turn them around. They're going to be like very noticeably in the flank of the enemy over here, and still out of 2. And because they're skirmishers, they can move twice like they have, and they can still fight or fire. Okay, so this is going to be a very interesting combat round. Okay, so turn 3 fighting phase, let's go. So what we've got here is the offensive side can choose which unit goes first. I could throw javelins, I could attack with the berserkers, or I could fight here with these raiders. What I'm thinking, these guys rolled pretty well over here on their collision. I'm a bit worried about getting hit back, and these are brittle and my main unit. So I'm just going to fight here first again, just to get the maximum amount of damage I can. Now, we've lost one guy out of this unit. So normally they would have 16. They go down to 14, but +1. So that puts them back up to 15. Okay, so we've got 15. And then these guys did the charge. So what I can do is I can add another 2 dice from these 2 in the back. So that puts them up to 4 extra offensive dice, which is pretty cool. So it's going to be 15 versus 8 because it's only this front row. So there's a big chance here the berserkers can really rip a hole through these guys if they roll well. Okay. So let's see if we can get a stonk round instead, which would be nice. So there's a few deaths there, which is a good start. So 3 deaths. We've got 2s and 4s, plenty of 4s going in there, and that is that. So we've got 3 deaths and 4 wounds that they've inflicted upon these guys, and we've got 8 dice in defense. So let's go. Here we go. Swordsmen roll their defensive dice. We got 1 death, and we have, oof, not the best roll. It's not the worst, but it's not great for what they're looking for. Okay, so we've got 1 death we take off and 3 wounds. So we're left with 2 deaths and 1 wound. Okay, so both of these are going to be saved. So These guys have armor, so they've got a minor success save. So they need a 2 or a 4 or they're dead. One survives from armor and one dies. So it's pretty even odds there. So he's dead. He steps back. Okay. And then we've got to save against this wound as well. And does not save. And let me have a look here. We did have a wounded guy in this unit too. So you can only take up to 2 wounds. This guy was already wounded, so he dies as well, which is a bit nasty. So it ends up being 2 deaths. Now the swordsmen are looking a bit grim because they're going to take these javelins as well, which is a bit nasty. All right, so moving right along, we go to the defender's side. So we've got a few options here. We could fight back with the swordsmen. Not sure, they could get murdered here, but we can also shoot with the archers into the back of these guys, which is a bit extreme. Or we can fight with these guys. I think I'm just going to throw caution to the wind with these guys, and I'm just going to shoot with the archers. They've got the best chance of doing damage. Okay, so they're going to have 12 dice because they're in a closed formation. That's what archers get, an extra 1 per 2 models, plus 2 per front rank. Okay, you will see the themes here and the commonality. Okay, so it's going to be 12. Because these guys are getting shot in the rear, we're only going to go half their thing again. So they're only going to get 4 dice, which isn't great. All right, so here we go. So 12 versus 4, very good odds on the archers. Remember the misses, and I will remember this time, the misses will be transferred over into the other guys. Okay, so last turn that would have been good with all those ones. Whoop, that was a 3, but not so much this turn. Not the best roll, honestly. We could have done a lot more killing. But last turn it would have been good. And that's where that target number comes in. It always mixes it up. And we've only got 4 dice in return. Okay, so let's go. So we got 1 kill, 2 kills and 1 wound. And that'll negate those. And this extra one will negate those too. So bit of a fail there. But we do have 8 dice to roll against our own guys, which isn't great from all those misses. Okay, this is the risk of shooting into combat. Okay, so we've got only 1 kill, so we're only looking for major successes there, right? So only 1 went through. Unfortunately for these guys, they are unarmored, so we lose one of our own men. So that shooting attack actually hurt us more than it hurt the enemy, which wasn't great. So we just kind of went through the gaps and shot the dude in the face. Not great. Okay, so we go back to the other guys. Of course, these guys have already attacked, or they could get attacked again. So I think, yeah, let's press it here. So I'm going to go here. So we've got this turn, because they've already charged. Last turn, they don't get any bonuses. These guys will receive 1 dice per rear rank in defense, so they get +1 defensive dice. They would have got +2 if that guy was still alive, like last turn, but he's not. Okay, so it's just 4 dice. So 8 dice, 1 per second to 2 people there. And these guys are just 8 and 9. So it's going to be 8 versus 9 with that bonus. So this is where these Bondi units can sort of weigh each other down and get into a bit of a slugfest, if not pushed by something else. So it's 8 versus 9. Let's go Raiders. All comes down to rolls. Okay, so we've got a kill. We've got some wounds here. Any 2s? Yes, we've got a 2, and that's it. So 1 kill and 4 wounds. We go to these guys now, and they've got 9 defensive dice. So let's see what they can do in return. Okay, so we've got kill, kill, kill. That alone is going to negate the attack, and lots of wounds. So there was a much better defensive roll with those guys with the 9, so they actually don't achieve anything, which is a shame for them. Okay, so now we can go back to the other team. And what we're looking at now is, I think my best chance of success is going to be to fight with these guys before they die. One good thing about these guys at the moment is they're 2 per front rank. So they've got 8, but they've got +4, which makes them 12 versus 7, which is pretty good odds again. And if we roll well, we haven't been really rolling that great this battle. Sometimes you just can stonk a whole unit in 1 turn. So 12 versus 7, let's go. Plenty of 3s, that's what we want. This might be the comeback that they need. Okay, so 2s, 2s, 4s. Okay, that's better. So 3 deaths. And what do we got there? 3 deaths and 3 wounds versus 7 defense dice of the Berserkers. Let's go 1 death and 3 wounds. So we remove the wounds and 1 death, and we have 2 deaths. This is a bit better. Now, as they're Berserkers, they have Fearless, so they get 2 saves versus these, and it's a 2 or a 4 or die. both fours. Wow, that was a really good save. So because they're berserkers and completely crazy and fired up because they're murdering people, they just ignore the wounds and probably die after the battle. So that's not good news for this team. Okay, so we go back over to the offensive side, and we have the Javelineers still in prime position here on these guys. I will remember again to do the casualties on this. So they're still in prime position. Got 12 dice. Oof, this time they've still got 2 per front rank, so it's just half of that. So it's 4. So it's 12 versus 4, 3-1 odds, which is pretty good. If I roll well again, haven't really had an outstanding roll yet, but we will get one, I'm sure. Okay, so this is into their back. Never fun, and it's a very poor roll as the last one, which isn't great. So 1 death and 3 wounds. And in defense, we get 1 death. So we just take 3 wounds. But Javelineers, they're armored, so it's -1. They need 3s on their saves. So they save 1, take 2 wounds, which kills another guy, which it all adds up, right? They could have done a lot better, but they could have done a lot worse as well. And the only other unit left to fight is these guys, and it's going to be just a straight up 2 per front rank versus 2 per front rank, so it's going to be 8 versus 8 over here. And they are currently losing the battle because they got javelin shot by one of their own guys, which isn't great. Okay, so it's 8 versus 8. Spearmen versus Raiders. Let's go. Someone roll. Let's go. Okay, that's not too bad. So we've got 2 kills and 3 wounds. And 8 dice over here. 8 dice over here. We have 2 kills and 3 wounds. So we negate that. Okay, that's good for the other guys because they could flee with that. That there will conclude the combat for this turn. So end of the turn, all we've got to really clean up here is we've got a major one over here. What happens is you normally get 2 dice to try and roll against this, but because they have got under their half strength now, they only get 1 dice to roll, and it's going to be, let's see how they go. And they are elite with the morale, so they do survive the combat. These guys get killed, but they do fall back, which isn't great. They go to 2, and it's not looking good for these guys. Looks like they're going to get wiped out to the man by the look of it. The only other one we have to do is down here. These guys did technically lose the combat because they took one casualty, and these guys took none somehow from all that attack. So these guys are built of tougher things. So these guys still get 2 dice with the two ranks left, and we're looking for a minor success on either of these. We get 1 minor success, so that guy is dead. And what happens is these guys fall back. All right. And that's what it's going to look like going into turn 4. So it looks like I did forget to do the casualties from the Javelineers on this one again. So 8 of those dice missed originally, so let's just roll it now. We're looking for 3s, and we didn't get any, so that's fine. So it didn't change anything in the battle. Excellent. All right, beginning of the next turn, the new target number is going to be 1 for this turn. We have the defenders over here roll a 5, and we also get a 5 from our attacking people, and both of those are embrace the grind. So both teams can add 2 brace tokens, only used offensively, on a unit of their choice, which I think they both will. Let me see. I think I'm going to put them down here for these guys. So for the offensive guys, they're going to have that. And then for the other team, let me see. Not a lot of choice, so I might put them down here as well. Might be a good idea. We might get some impact down here. So that's what they're, but they do have to roll off to see who actually won the initiative, and we roll again. And this time, as per other turns, we have the offensive team winning the initiative, and they will choose to fight first. All right, so let's just get straight into movement. The defenders have to move first. These guys don't really want to spring anything. These guys are looking pretty as they are. Now, what I'll do is I'll just nominate a charge over here. That's all I can really do. These guys are still alive. May as well get the most out of them while I can. Okay, these guys are going to try and countercharge. So they've got to make a roll, and they need a 2 or a 6. They don't get it. So this is good for the swordsman. Okay, so these guys charge in. No challenges again, unfortunately. Okay, so we'll do the impact roll over here, and they get a +1 to their dice, which is good. So they get that charge off. Okay, so going over to the other team, these guys here, I think we're just going to have to, we're in a really bad spot. I think we're just going to try and trounce this unit and just do our best. So they're going to charge. These guys are just not going to react. They're just going to, they don't need to because they want to get that bonus. So they just stay where they are, and these guys charge forward. Okay, so let's do they've both got that bonus this turn too. So let's do the impact roll from these guys. They get a 1, so that's another +2 dice, which is bonus. That's really great. Okay, and they're locked in combat. They're locked in combat. So all we have left is these guys and those guys. Now, I'm just going to ready those guys, and then these guys are going to do something similar, which takes us to the second part of the movement phase, and it's the same 2 units again, and they're just going to stay where they are. And that'll bring us into the combat. Alrighty, let's do some combat. So the offensive side from over here, they are going to get the fighting initiative. So what do we reckon? I reckon I'm going to start here this turn, actually, because these guys don't have the offensive capabilities they used to. So the bonus here is, which is really good, is that they get +1 because they charge this turn. They get +1 offensive dice per unit in the back. So this goes from 4 to 7, which is nasty. That's some nasty combat bonus. Alternatively, on this side, these guys get 1 dice per 2 models. There's 6 left from having the longer weapons, the spears. So they go up to 5. And they also get a bonus for 1 per 2 in the back rank for defense with their bracing. So it's going to be like that. Okay, so now we're going to start with this one, and it's going to be 8 plus 7 is 15 versus 9. So they've got a pretty good chance of doing something amazing here. Let's see how they go. We better do it quick before we get shot in the back again. So 15 versus 9. Okay. Lots of wounds, sort of. 2, okay. Not the best, so 2 kills and 5 wounds versus 9. And we got that one there as well. Okay, so we got 9 here defensively. So that'll be all of that and that. Okay, so 1 death and a few wounds there too. Ouch. All right, so the wounds, they take 1 wound and 1 death in the end of that. So we lose a spearman. And that one is wounded, so I'll turn him around. Okay. All right, so on a last-ditch effort to do anything, do anything, do it now. These guys attack. So they've got 1 per front rank, which is 6, and then 7 with that versus 7. So it's 7 versus 7. Let's see how that goes. Oh, here's the roll we've been looking for. Look, 3 deaths and 2 wounds. Just roll less dice, that's how you roll better. Okay, and it's versus 7. So the Berserkers need something here, or they could lose a couple. They rolled well last turn. No death rolls, not good, but plenty of wounds. Enough wounds to remove all those wounds. And what we have now is 3 deaths against the Berserker. So this is a valiant last stand around the banner bearer. Now they need fearless saves of 6 or 2, or they're dead. 1 saves, 2 die. Ouch. Now that's a bit better. Very good. Okay, so that is those guys gone. What we do now is we go back to this side, and these guys have already attacked, so there's nothing major here. So I might just attack back with these guys and just try and wipe them out this turn, because we don't want these guys to lose combat. So what we have now is we've only got 5 guys left, so that's 10 dice versus 6 over on this side. So let's see how we go. See if we can punch back as hard as they just punched us. They were saving it up. 1 death and 3 wounds. Not great, but we've only got 6 defensive dice on the other side. And we've got 1 death and 3 wounds. So look out, the swordsmen are coming back. So 2 deaths on them, and they get none in return with that particular engagement. All right, so we go back to this team. I think we'll spring this one now, since that's sort of resolved over there. So what we're going to do is we have 5 extra dice here, so 8 plus 5 is 12 versus 8. 2 to 1, let's go. So 12 versus 8. Okay, a few deaths there, that's always a good thing. And 6s and 2s. And that looks like it, 3 deaths and 4 wounds. We've spent that 5 versus 8. Okay, so 1 death and 1 wound. Yes, not the best retaliation there, so we just lose one of those and one of those. Now, the bad thing here for these guys is they have no armor left, like no bonuses, so they lose 2, 3, and 1 is wounded, so 3 die automatically. And then I'll turn this guy around, which he already is. He's wounded, so they're dead. That's not great for those guys. Okay, we go back to the Javelineers, and let's see if I can forget for a third turn with these guys. It's going to be 12 this time versus 3. Surely we can do some damage without killing our own guys, hopefully. And I really need to get these guys on at least 2 casualties so that the Berserkers don't lose this combat. Okay, so 12 dice versus 3. Surely we can pull something out here. All right, 1 death and a few 6s there. Again, not a good roll. They've been rolling bad all game. Versus 3, so 1 death and 4 wounds versus 1 wound. Okay, that's not too bad. Now these guys are unwounded, so 1 is going to die and 3 are wounded if they don't take armor saves. Now, penetrating ability drops their armor 1 level, so they have to roll a 1. So this is versus the death, needing a 1, fail. So we lose another 1 there. And now we've got 3 rolls here. They've got to make at least 2 of these, which they don't. So they lose another 1, and it's just the banner bearer, and he's wounded. So I'm going to turn him around that way. All right. Which leaves us with 1 combat left, and that is these guys. So it's starting to get down to the business end here. We've sort of broken both sides with 2-on-1 sort of situations. You can see how effective archers and stuff can be. All right, so we've got 12 dice versus half of this, which is 4. So very good odds again. Let's see if we can wipe this unit once and for all. Okay, so 12 versus 4. Oh, now that is what we're talking about, kids. That's how we roll dice. So 5 deaths, very big. And look, all of those wounds. I think this is going to do it. So we've got 6 deaths and 5 wounds versus 4 in defense, which isn't great. So 1 death and 1 wound. So we take off one of those, and we take off one of those, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 deaths. So that entire unit is wiped out. Okay, and we only missed with 1 shot, which is really good too, which means we only take 1 against these guys, and it's got to be a 1 to wound them. It isn't, so they're fine. Okay, that is nasty. Whole unit wiped out. Okay, end of the turn. Clean up here, not looking great. Now these guys, it doesn't really matter there, so they just lose that guy and they win that combat. Over here it's a draw, very interesting. It does hold up the combat, I guess. So those guys automatically are removed, and no one actually won that, which is interesting. That standard bearer needs a pay rise. He's pretty tough. He's held in there this whole battle so far. So this is what it's going to look like going into the next turn. It's kind of a samesies, isn't it, on either side? All right, target number for the new turn is a 3. We've got that up there. We've got the initiative for these 2 teams. So the defenders roll a 6, and the offensive side get a 3 and win the initiative. And they are going to hold the line, so they're going to get 2 defensive brace tokens, which I think I'm going to put over here because I'm sick of getting shot at or hurt over here. So I'm going to put the defensive brace tokens there. The other guy's got a 6, and they are going to choose to make these 2 units fearless for this turn, which is very big. It could actually save them a little bit. All right, so that's what's going to happen in this turn. And these guys are going to choose to fight first, obviously. All right, here we go. So remember, we've got these guys are both fearless, but they're going to have to move first as well. It's going to put them in a bit of a position here. Archers aren't in the best spot at the moment, so they've got their back to the berserkers who are within charge range, so they should have probably taken a different initiative there, but that's okay. So what's going to happen now is these guys are going to have to get out of dodge somehow. So I can either try and expand them back to open formation on the move, or I can try and about face them, but then I'm going to get charged. So I think I'm going to try and run away. It's not very bold, but I think it's my best option. And I'm going to try and change my formation first. I'm going to do it as I go. So these guys have an average discipline. So they need a minor success, so a 2 or a 4. And they get it. Wow, these guys. Unit of the Year award over here. So now they can move in any direction. And what I think I might do is move them back into here in an open formation. Okay, so we open them back up. Turn them around the right way, I guess. Not that it matters. Okay, so they move back to their first move. Oof. All right, here's what I'm going to do. They're still engaged in combat. Javelineers, what do we want to do? I think we're going to move them, hey? I'm going to move them over here. Let's get some heat on these archers, because these guys fight better within this sort of terrain than the archers do. Much better in open formation. Okay, so we move them down here. All right, they move to there with their first move, which leaves the spearmen, and these guys want to get up the guts here and try and put some heat on the berserkers before they get totally trounced. Still not going to be in range. Okay, so that's it for the movement. So we go back to the second part of the movement phase, and it's back to these guys again. I think I'm going to, are they within 4? Yes, they are. Oof. All right, I might, no point overwatching, but I want to shoot. This is the problem. I think I'm just going to have to take it as it is and just stay where I am. So I'll start with these guys. They can't charge, they're out of charge range. But I'm going to move up to 1. I can move them out of 1 of the berserkers because they're in the back, or the flank of them. Okay, so they get to there, and then these guys, you know what? I'm just going to move them right up here, really close. I wanted some payback on these archers. They're still in open formation. They just move up that little bit because they're skirmishers, they can move. And then these guys are just going to hold as they are. So that will be it for the movement phases. Okay, so the offenders got to fight first. So what happens here is I'm going to start with the Javelineers at point blank range on the archers, which isn't going to be good for their general well-being, I would say. So it's going to be 12 dice versus 1 per model in this formation. So it's going to be 12 versus 8. So let's give that a go. So we've got 6. Here we go. So 12. Okay, so we've got a couple of 3s there, which is good. Got some 2s and we need some 4s. All right, and that is it. So we've got 3 deaths and 2 wounds, and we have 8 in retaliation for defense. Dodging those javelins. Ooh, I think this is going to hurt a little bit. Okay, so they've got some wounds, and that's it. And negate those, but they take 3 deaths, so we lose 3 archers straight off the bat. Bang. Okay, so we get mass javelineered to the side. Didn't do them much good for their health. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, so that's the first round of combat there. So we can go back to this team. They can't do anything. I've only got him and the archers, so I may as well go with him. He's got 2 dice versus 5, but they got +2 defensive dice, so it's going to be 7. So it's going to be 2 versus 7. I'll spend that now. So here's my 2 dice, and I don't do anything, so don't worry about that. Goes back to these guys, and they are going to attack with these berserkers. There's 5 of them, so that's 10 dice versus 2. And he's already wounded as well. So I just need to do 1 wound on these guys and they're dead. So 10 versus 2. Let's go. All right. Okay, so we've got a death, we have a wound, and another death. Okay, cool. Versus 2. One death. Okay. One death, one wound. So either of these will kill him. So I'll just do 2 saving throws, and he needs either a 2 or a 4 on both of these dice, or he's dead. Dead. Finally. Finally, that man went down. He went down screaming. Okay. Let's go. So the only unit we have left to fight is these archers. Now, the only target we have is these guys. It's going to be 5 dice, 1 per model in an open formation. Okay, now this is interesting over here because these are skirmishers. All right, so they get 1 per model, but they also get an extra 1 per 2 when getting shot at because they're skirmishers. So it's going to be 5 versus 12, which makes them quite hard to hit. This is where the javelineers have an edge over in close quarters like this over the archers. Okay, so here's our 5 dice. We get a death and 3 wounds. It's a pretty good roll for that, versus 12. So let's see if we can just negate that, which the odds makers would say we should, but you never know. I've rolled worse. Okay, it's not a great roll. I did get a death, which helps, and 3 wounds, and that's it. 2 deaths. So, yep, as I thought, they had negated that. So that worked out really well. Okay, and as we're just rolling and there's not much to do, these guys are going to make a roll for fleeing combat. They've lost 3 guys against missile fire, which is pretty horrific if you're just a peasant. Okay, so they've got 2 dice and they're looking for 2s and 4s. They get 1 4, they lose those guys, and they fall back 2 in this direction. So they haven't been broken, which is good for them. Okay, and that's how it's looking going to the last turn. All right, so here we go. The target number for this turn is 1. We just keep going 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, don't we? And here's our initiative dice for everyone for their pledge numbers. So again, the attacking force of 1, which they've done nearly every turn. They get a 4 this turn, which is going to give them fire and assist, so they can give themselves shooting tokens. So I'm going to put them on these guys, so I can aim to finish off these archers. And the other team has a 5, which is going to be embrace the grind. They get some offensive tokens, so I'm going to put them on these guys, I believe. So these guys get +2 to their offensive capabilities this turn. And that is their turn. These guys are going to opt to... they're going to opt to fight first again. And I think this will probably be the last turn, because if one of these units breaks on either side, the game's pretty much over. So it'll bust them. Okay, so let's see how we go. All right, so first thing the archers do is they want to... I'm going to try and... no, I won't change formation on the run. I'm just going to... They're in open formation. I'm going to move them out of this bad terrain, sort of this way-ish, like that. And then hopefully next turn I'll be able to do something else with them, change formation. Okay, so the other units we've got here, so that was their turn. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare a charge here with the berserkers. They're open order, so they can move from anywhere, so there's no big deal. And this is their collision dice. They're just going to take the charge because that's what they do. No extra collision dice. So these guys just turn and fight. Roar. Okay. Very good, Yeho. Alrighty. So the only thing we have left, everyone's engaged in combat now. The only thing we have left over here is these guys, and they're just going to run as far as they can towards these archers because they've got the advantage on them now. They want to run them down and hurt them. Okay, so they move to there. These guys, in response, are going to close ranks on their second move, so it'll put a rank of 4 and of 1 there, so they'll get more shooting dice this turn. And that's why they did that, and they're facing these guys. Okay, so they change formation to closed. They can't do anything, and these guys are just going to hold where they are because they're quite happy with this scenario. And they do have those as well, extra dice in damage this turn. That's the whole movement phase. It's all starting to move pretty quick. Start of the combat phase, what we've got is the offensive dudes are going to choose to go over here with the berserkers. They've got 2 dice per berserker, so that gives them 10. They're putting in some work now. Now, one thing that happens here, they've got the offensive bonus, and they get a +1 2 extra dice because they've got the spears and the berserkers are charging onto their spears, and they also get 1 dice in defense over here as well. So it's going to be 10 versus 8 for the front rank and 1 for that. So it'll be 10 versus 9. So not the best, but we'll see. But it's not bad. We get some kills here, so we've got a few kills. And we also have a couple of wounds. And that's 5, and we're looking for 9 dice. So 9 dice defensively, so 3 kills and 2 wounds versus 2 kills and a lot of wounds. So what happens here is the wounds are gone and there is 1 death. So that guy finally dies, which could be big. Okay, so that's the combat there with the berserkers. So we can either fight back here or we can shoot. And I believe we are going to shoot. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to get 2 dice for front rank now, and then 1 assist here. So it's going to be 9 versus 12, because remember they're a skirmisher and they're in open order. Okay. So 9 dice versus 12, not the best, but you could still roll well. Okay, well that's not too bad. So 2 deaths straight off the bat and no wounds. So just 2 deaths versus 12 dice. Hopefully, maybe, should be able to get this. Okay. Okay, so 1 death, and the rest doesn't matter because like deaths can only cancel deaths, right? So 1 dies of these skirmishers. Sorry, buddy. You're the odd one out. Okay, so now we fight back with these guys. Normally they would have had 12, which went down to 11 with that dude dead. And then, but we go to 13. So 13 dice with a +2 we got versus 5. Okay, 13 versus 5. This should hurt in theory. Not rolling a lot of deaths, unfortunately. That's a very, very bad roll by the look of it. Yep, so 1 death and 2 wounds, and we've got 5 dice coming back at it. 1 death and 2, 3 wounds, so nothing. Ouch. So they actually lost the combat. That's a bit nasty. Okay, and that leaves the only thing we have left is these guys, and they need to get a kill here, otherwise it's going to be bad because their morale test is going to be very poor. So they've got 8 dice. They're going to rely on their spears and that initial impact that they got. So it's going to be 8 plus 4, which is 12, which isn't pretty good. Running onto spears isn't fun. And the berserkers are only going to have 5 in defense, which is not great. So this, they could turn the tables here. Okay, so 1 death. And we've got a few wounds here by the look of it. And that is it. Versus 5. And 1 death and 1 wound. Okay, so what happens here is the berserkers take 3 wounds. Okay, now they've got a fearless save, so they need a 2 or a 6 on all of these dice rolls. And they save all of them. That probably just won them the game, I'd say. Okay, so we'll go straight to the end phase because it's all done. Now, let me see here. We're going to get... All right, so in the end phase, this will determine who wins this battle, really. So let's just start here. This is the major center. So these guys only have 1 dice, and now they have to roll a minor success or break. And they break. He's dead. And these guys do a full retreat, moving back into open order. So they can do 6 out to here. So they're run for the hills. Okay, that's not great for them. Now, what happens over here is that these guys lost 1, but it was only 1 casualty to shooting. Normally it wouldn't matter so much, but what they got 2 dice to save with their resolve, but now they get 3. They get +1 dice because there was only 1 casualty to shooting. So they've got 3 dice. They've just got to get 1 minor success, which they do. And that 1 dice right there just won this team the game. So what happens here, just as a closeout, these guys are gone. and there's only these archers left. They have no chance of survival, so they break as well because it's busted the army break level. You know, over 2/3 of the army are dead, so these guys just run, and that'll be the end of the battle, seeing their mates run. And that's how it'll end. So it looks like the invading force pushed back the defenders, and now they own this little house and hut and can loot to their heart's content. So to the victors come the spoils of war. Looks like these guys have successfully taken over this farmstead, and now the looting begins, I guess. I hope you enjoyed that. It was just a pretty, it's quite hard to do these by myself. This one particular one, I'm just sitting here by myself, so I do make an occasional mistake. Main mistakes were when shooting into combat and then just, doing those casualties that might happen on your friendly forces. But beyond that, it just gives you a little bit of a taste. I didn't get too detailed into the rules. There's a lot more detailed breakdowns that I'll be putting on the Kickstarter and all of those things and on this channel. So keep an eye out for those. But for now, I'm Luke. Thank you very much for listening. And I'll talk to you soon.